As you may have already seen on my YouTube channel, I'm a big fan of rarity overviews, looking back and enjoying all the amazing species seen in our country. Now that the first 2 months of the year have passed and migration is gradually picking up, I thought it would be a good time to reflect. Based on my information, 237 different species were reported in the first 2 months of the year. Of these, 9 were undocumented: northern fulmar, sooty shearwater, purple heron, black stork, Eurasian dotterel, Atlantic puffin, little auk, great skua, and common tern. The northern fulmar and Atlantic puffin were only seen far out at sea, likely from a research aircraft or boat. The purple heron wasn't documented either, but was reported by the same birder who photographed one at the same location in December. There were also a few rare month species. January saw documented cases of black-winged stilt, little-ringed plover, blue-throat, black tern, and garden warbler, while a photographed common whitethroat was present in February. The black-winged stilt is still around. 7 megas found in 2024 were still present, and with mega I'm referring to submission species. There were also some other rare birds still present. I'll go through those first before moving on to new discoveries. We start with the holdovers from 2024. In the Kennemerduinen and near Herugewaard, both ringneck ducks were still present. The one in the dunes moves between several small lakes. It's harder to determine which lesser scarps from 2024 were still around and which were newly found, as the same birds frequently show up at multiple locations. In the first 2 months of the year, birds were reported in North and South Holland, Flevoland, and Friesland. A first winter female bufflehead occasionally appeared at Pampushaven, Almere. Where it stays when not in Pampushaven is unknown. It has been seen 4 times in 2025. Unfortunately, no clear photograph of its right leg has been taken to confirm the absence of a ring, which is required for acceptance. The last duck that carried over was the Baikal teal in St. Pancras. 2 more were found in 2025. One was at the Gelderland-Germany border, but documentation was so poor that it's unclear whether a Baikal teal is even recognizable in the images. A third bird in the Onlanden is also questionable due to an escaped blue-winged teal of the same age at the same location. Among water birds, the pygmy cormorant in Lelystad was a highly reliable presence, staying in the same park and becoming a popular birding target. There was also a long-billed dowitcher. It was originally found in Belgium before the new year, but in early 2025 it foraged so close to the border that when it took flight it occasionally crossed into Dutch territory, making it countable for Dutch birders. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case for the Santo crane just across the German border. The final carryover submission species was the presumed Siberian lesser whitethroat in Didam. Additionally, there were 4 documented cases of possible eastern lesser whitethroats, 1 caught in Vianen, and field sightings in Apeldoorn, Huizen, and Haarlem. A call recording of the species was also made on Texel. Beyond these, several other non-submission rare birds remained. I'm not talking about species like red-breasted goose, but birds that year-listers were eager to see. Until January 2nd, an American widgeon was present in Waalwijk. Another was reported in Vatrop on February 1st, though it wasn't shared directly, if my memory is correct. On February 7th, one was at Oostzaan. However, the best period for American widgeons, April, is still ahead. Red phalaropes are usually easy to find on annual lists, but an inland overwintering individual is exceptional. The Biddinghuizen bird was a popular target with its tame behavior and opportunity for low-angle photos producing stunning images. When the frost arrived, it left and didn't return. A black guillemot was regularly reported around Texel in the fall, but this year it seemed to be hiding in a restricted naval harbor. Still, some birds managed to snap a photo, possibly with help from staff who allowed them access. Will it show up in a more accessible location in the coming months? This winter saw no major influx of Iceland or glaucus gulls, but the annual returning adult Iceland gull in Katwijk and Leiden was back. However, it remained a tricky bird to twitch. The same seemed to apply to the glaucous in Muiden and its surroundings. At one point, it was even seen as far as Katwijk. Later, it became highly sight-faithful at a quay in the harbour and could even be lured down with bread for better photos. An overwintering hoopoe isn't unheard of, but it's still rare. This winter, one has been hanging around the bungalow park on Ameland for quite some time. The bird's plumage isn't in perfect condition, but it doesn't seem to be affected. Even a short period of frost and snow didn't bother it. Then, some overwintering wood warblers. First species to discuss is the Pallises leaf warbler. The only individual that made it into the new year was the one in Beetse Zwaag. It proved difficult to photograph, but at least one observer managed to capture an image. The last report of this bird was on January 18th. The dusky warbler didn't stick around for long either. It was photographed for the last time on January 1st and was still present on January 2nd, but after that, no further observations were reported. There were significantly more reports of Hume's leaf warbler. Two individuals carried over from 2024, one in Sallandse Heuvelrug and another in Hendrikie de Wambacht. The bird in Salland was sometimes not reported for extended periods, but was later rediscovered. It was last observed on January 26th. The Hendrikie de Wambacht bird lasted only until January 5th. Fortunately, another bird was found on January 11th in Oudekerk aan Amstel. However, it didn't stay long, as it disappeared after the 15th. Perhaps it moved to the North Holland Dune Reserve. A bird was found there on the 17th, but didn't stay until spring and was last reported on the 22nd. February wasn't without a Hume's leaf warbler either. One was found in Culemborg on February 24th, but wasn't rediscovered and documented until the 27th. Wintering rosy starlings are typically observed about once a year, often after a fall season with an influx of juveniles. This time that wasn't the case, as an adult bird had already been present on Texel since last summer. It survived until 2025, but was last seen on January 5th. The Richard's pipit has now become an annual overwinterer. Any dedicated birder visiting the coast in the autumn can usually tick over a flyover. However, twitchable individuals remain scarce, making wintering ones valuable. Birds were reported in December at Veersemeer and Oudorp, but only the outdoor bird was seen again on January 2nd. Fortunately, another bird in Overijssel was recorded until January 19th. On February 14th, a new Richard's pipit was discovered in eastern Zeeland, last confirmed on February 23rd. New discoveries included the taiga bean goose, found at what now seems to be a typical site in eastern Groningen. As in previous years, the Wever brothers were responsible for the find, having accounted for a significant portion of the species discoveries in recent years. In December, two birds had been reported in the Stadskanaal area, but these were only single observations, so they are not considered overwintering individuals. In 2025, two more convincing individuals were discovered among groups of tundra bean geese. Besides multiple Hume's leaf warblers, a yellow-browed warbler was also found this winter. It was photographed in Elfen aan de Rijn on the 14th and in Rijswijk on the 20th. No follow-up observations were reported until the original observer refound it on the 27th. It was successfully twitched on the 28th. Following a fall with very few waxwings, it was surprising that a few were spotted this year. Most were flyovers, but two individuals were seen and photographed on the ground, one in Bodegraven and another in Groningen. Only the latter was successfully twitched the next morning. Unfortunately, this record remained undocumented and no further observations followed. Glossy ibises vary in abundance from year to year. None carried it over from 2024, and so far only one individual has been reported in Overijssel. However, these striking birds can sometimes appear in sudden flocks during the spring or autumn, so it's worth keeping an eye out. The last subrarity to mention is the little bunting. There were no twitchable overwintering birds this year. On February 10th, one was discovered in a small garden in Oud-Beierland. The sighting was shared only within a small circle to avoid large crowds. While I personally dislike secrecy, I can understand it when a subrarity turns up in a private garden in winter. Little buntings tend to linger, so this one might stay until April, potentially drawing photographers for months. Now, for the crème de la crème, the 4 new submission species discovered in 2025. The year had barely begun when on January 3rd, the first Pacific diver for the Netherlands was found by Sven Valkenburg and Emma Scheltens. This long-awaited species was last seen alive on February 7th. Sadly, on February 8th, it may have fallen prey to a seal, a tragic end for such a significant discovery. It didn't take long for another rare diver to appear. Although not as rare as the Pacific diver, the white-billed diver was still highly sought after. Discovered on January 11th in Warmond, it moved across large distances over lakes and canals. It was last seen on the 14th, already showing signs of illness. However, dense fog set in around that time, which may also have contributed to the lack of further sightings. Unfortunately, on the 18th, its body was found. 2 days later, hundreds of birders stared in disbelief at their phones. A spectacled eider had been reported feeding off the coast of Texel. This species was not considered likely to stray this far south. Initially, skepticism arose, with some suspecting a hoax. However, a local birder soon confirmed the sighting on the Wadden Sea. Could it be an escape? But reports quickly followed that the bird was unringed and it showed no unusual feather damage. On the first day, it was a race against time. About 100 birders made the 3:30 p.m. ferry, with several dozen more taking the 4:30 p.m. boat and seeing the bird in the dusk. Thankfully, the spectacled eider remained in the area, being absent on only 2 days. However, opportunities for good photos were rare. It remains to be seen how much longer it will stay. The final new submission species was a cackling goose of the Ochinsi subspecies. Rick Wever found it on February 2nd near Stadskanaal, a region where he and his brother Jan also annually discovered tiger bean geese. The last twitchable bird of this subspecies was in 2013, yet enthusiasm among twitchers was lukewarm, with only a few dozen making the trip on February 3rd. The bird was gone by the 4th. It was relocated on February 24th, but now in Friesland. Unfortunately, the observer didn't realize its significance at the time, and it could not be refound the next day. In total, 11 submission species have been reported so far this year, all of which were twitchable. But how does this compare to 2014, the year Peter Doorn set a still-standing yearless record? In the first 2 months of 2014, 14 twitchable submission species were recorded. Of the 11 from this year, 2, lesser scorp and ringneck duck, appeared later in 2014. However, 2014 also had a lesser yellowlegs early on, which we'll likely see later in 2025. Additionally, parrot crossbills and Arctic redpolls were present in 2014. While not submission species, their eruptive nature means they are not guaranteed every year. So far, 2025 is trailing by about 5 species in terms of year listing. Next week, we'll return with a regular update covering the first 9 days of March. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so and click the notification bell to stay updated. See you next time.